Today we have our morning cup of tea or coffee latte from a cup or mug, without much thought for the china we drink it from. This is because it's become such an integral aspect of our 21st century lifestyle. The ceramicware it derived from, known as porcelain, as a commodity, aided the growth of both the East and Western world's economies and benefited their social and cultural development for centuries. Porcelain is a translucent hard-paste ceramicware that was brought across the old Silk Road to the courts of Europe from Far Eastern Cathay, we now know as China, during the Ming dynasty, 1368 to 1644. The very best came from the kilns at Jingdeshen. The secret of how to produce porcelain, as it was named by 14th century Venetian traveller Marco Polo, remained a mystery in the West for centuries. An ability to see through something so hard and impervious to liquid seemed almost magical to the princes of the courts of Europe and England. For them it represented a refinement of taste. It was given silver or gilded mounts to protect its fragility and to honour its brilliance, and it was put on display as a symbol of status, power and prestige. By the beginning of the 18th century, the rituals associated with tea and coffee drinking were in the ascendancy in Europe, England and America, so the commercial advantages of producing a competitive product to that of the long-standing Eastern trade was highly motivating. It was Augustus the Strong, Elector of Saxony, a southeastern state of modern-day Germany, who took the risks, funded experimentation and reaped the rewards. He brought together two unlikely characters, German mathematician, physicist, physician and philosopher Einfried Volta von Scherenhaus, and a young alchemist of dubious reputation, Johann Friedrich Bottger. Carrying out trials to test the heat resistance and chemical changes of Saxony's earths and minerals at very high temperatures, they achieved a hard-paste red stoneware by 1703. Scherenhaus died in 1708. A year before, a report to the king on the 28th of March 1709 said that Bottger could make good white porcelain with finest glazing and painting in such perfection as to at least equal, if not surpass, the Eastern production. This was a boast, because it took several more years for the Saxon porcelain factory to eventually rival Oriental wares. By then the laboratory was far too small, and in 1710 they moved it to the old fortress at the town of Meissen. At the Leipzig Easter Fair of 1710, the Meissen factory exhibited for the very first time. Black glazed red stonewares promoted Saxony's industries and their luxury goods. They were described in the Leipzig Gazette as lacquered like the most beautiful Japanese products, and the painting on these wares is traditionally attributed to Martin Schnell, who is known to have worked for Meissen between 1711 and 15. The manufacture of the new European porcelain differed from the Chinese by its relatively high proportion of the mineral kaolin, about 50% against the Chinese 30%. They were experimenting, and it would be wrong to imagine at all that they were very scientific about what they were doing. All they really knew was that in order to reproduce porcelain, they had to fire the earths at a very high temperature. This bowl of hard-paste porcelain has two delightful loop handles that extend from its interior. They are formed as twisted rose stems and extend out over the surface in modelled and applied foliage and flowers. The body itself is a creamy paste with a slightly greenish glaze. It was all about trial and error and the construction of the kilns. These remained a carefully kept secret, almost as precious as that of the composition of the paste. European pieces were fired twice against a single Chinese firing process. After the first firing they were painted and the colours embedded by the high temperatures of the second firing. The immediate public response was disappointing because many of Bottcher's original red stonewares were left plain or were given gilded borders, which we would today think was wonderfully minimalist. Some had delightful gilded painted Chinese scenes. However, at the time they were competing against a highly coloured and very sophisticated product from the established markets of China and the burgeoning market of Japan. So this would have been viewed in a totally different light. To assist the factory, Augustus the Strong asked the court goldsmith Johann Jakob Erminger to provide both designs and ideas for new shapes. This large jug of Bottcher porcelain, made about 1715, has what's called Erminger overlay, a technique that he developed for applying delicate reliefs, in this case beautiful blossoming branches. This style of porcelain was meant to be both fashionable and valuable. At Meissen, they copied the palette of colours of iron red, bluish green, yellow and light blue that were used by Japanese potter Kakiemon Sakida, with sometimes the surface enriched with additional gilding. Much use was made of Chinese models at first, but within a very short time an indigenous style emerged with its own shapes, symbols and styles. With improvements, Bottcher's red stonewares became extremely fashionable at court. It was around 1716 that beautiful wares with pink lustre inner surfaces were achieved for the first time. It was a dangerous technique whose recipe included mercury that gave a metallic glow to the glaze. Only a few experimental pieces survive, developed by Bottcher, who wrote to the king in 1717, saying, "These works are, so to speak, my firstborn children, and I trust you will therefore not take it amiss when I say that for myself I love them tenderly, and I try to bring them into the high esteem and opinion of others." Gradually, new techniques for polishing and engraving were developed, and eventually, with artistic innovation, the appropriate response came from the public. The Meissen porcelain factory was on its way to success.